Welcome to the Willie Bragg Show. I'm your humble host, Willie Bragg. And I got up first thing this morning to notice something that I've sort of been suspecting was going to happen for a very long time. And how to interpret it so many different ways, because there are going to be many different ways people are going to interpret it. And I'm going to be one of many people that are going to interpret it in my own unique little way. So when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, there's really not much middle ground when it comes to her. You either really like her or you really despise her, and it just doesn't matter because people have. That's one of the many derangement syndromes that exist in our political discourse. There's Trump derangement syndrome, where people love him or hate him. There's Bernie Sanders derangement syndrome, where they love him or hate him. There's AOC derangement syndrome, where they either love her or hate her. And there is Tulsi Gabbard derangement syndrome, where they either love her or hate her. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So what I'm going to do, I am going to play you a blast from the past. It's one of my favorite Tulsi Gabbard moments, shall we say. And there's context to this, and then I will go and comment a little further, and then we'll get to the meat and potatoes of everything. Hold tight here, and this is for levity's sake, by the way, so hold tight. All right, this is from 2019 in the early primaries of the debate, and I would say, even though it was for Bernie, this was my favorite moment. So I'll let y'all have I'll let y'all listen to this for yourself. Here we go.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who are on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
My entire career, I have been personally opposed to the death penalty, and that has never changed. And I dare anybody who is in a position to make that decision, to face the people I have faced, to say, I will not seek the death penalty. That is my background. That is my work. I am proud of it. I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion on a stage, but when they're in the position to actually make a decision, what do they do? When I was in the position of having to decide whether or not to seek a death penalty on cases I prosecuted, I made a very difficult decision that was not popular to not seek the death penalty. History shows that, and I am proud of those decisions.
Okay. That was my favorite moment of the 2020 campaign. She knows it was for Bernie. I don't want to repeat that over and over again, even though I have a slightly less positive view of Bernie today. I was very strongly for Bernie, but had Bernie's not been in the race, I would have probably supported her. She was a very strong second choice for me back then. She had strong left-wing credentials. Now she has some really quirky positions, but you know what? Every human being, nobody. What do you expect? A robot? I mean, I'm not going to expect ideological perfection from every human being there is. The only person that I expect ideological perfection from is myself. But but honestly, that was the favorite moment of the 2020 campaign. And however, whatever way even if she heads toward a negative direction that I sometimes have concerns about, I can never take that away from Tulsi Gabbard, because let's face it, Kamala Harris is a horrible, horrible person. There is a reason some of us do still call her Cop Mala. I mean, she's as terrible as someone like oh gosh, what was his name during the Reagan administration, the Attorney General, Ed Meese. So I mean, she's horrible. I mean, and she's a corporate Democrat. I mean, she let these people off the hook, a lot of these corporate criminals off the hook, while she was the Attorney General, and she pretty much just rubber stamped the kind of crap that someone like Biden would with his crime bill, but she did it down on the state level of California. So as far as I'm concerned, I have no use for Kamala Harris, even of this late date, even if I'm going to go slightly negative on Tulsi here. But I'm going to play you the speech I heard this morning, and I'm going to comment on it. So let me just get that ready for y'all, and we will, and I will comment on this speech here. Give me a quick moment here.
Switch and save $652. It's okay.
Oh, why did that happen? Okay. All right. Give me a moment here. I'm getting everything set up. I hate it when it does that. Okay. Hold on. Okay. All right. Here she is. And I'm getting everything set up, as I said. As you can tell, she says she is leaving the Democratic Party. And so I'll let her talk about it.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, I invite you to join me.
Okay, now I got something to say about this. Now, I'm going to say it like it is. Now, I do believe that both parties are toxic. And for that, I'm not going to go and criticize her too much. I was a lifelong Democrat until the mid 1990s. Actually, it wasn't even lifelong. I was just when I registered as a Democrat at the age of 18, and then I became a socialist in 1994 at the age what was I, 25, 26 years old. So, and I've just been pretty much that. I mean, sometimes I will occasionally register as a Democrat for a few months, like just to vote for, like, for example, 2 years ago, to vote for Bernie in the primaries. But I'm side issue aside, I am critical of the Democratic Party, and if she's critical of the Democratic Party, there's good reason to be. But and I defended Tulsi Gabbard from vicious smears by Hillary Clinton. That still stands, by the way. And I don't blame her for leaving the Democratic Party. But if her take is to join the Republican Party, she didn't say she's joining the Republican Party. And I know that she chose her words carefully. She didn't say she's joining the Republican Party. She says she's leaving the Democratic Party. But if she's joining the Republican Party, and as horrible as both parties are, because both parties are right-wing, joining the Republican Party is worse. It really is. The Democratic Party is if you want to compare it to a Western European country standard of what a center-right party is probably slightly to the right, in my opinion, of the British Conservative Party or the German Christian Democratic Union. The Republican Party is pretty much, in my opinion, the Republican Party is pretty much a fascist party at this point. Not everybody in the Republican Party is fascist, but there are plenty of people who are pretty much espousing fascism, if not by words, by action. Some people by words. In a casual conversation with Tucker Carlson, Jesse Kelly basically was almost calling for fascism. So, and we know where certain people are headed, at least on rhetoric. Michael Savage called for a nationalist party a decade ago, and he's getting one through the Republican Party, through a quote unquote nationalist party. And so, and nationalism to me is basically an authoritarian form of patriotism. You can be a patriotic person, even though I'm not particularly patriotic, and be okay. But then there are people who are nationalists, and nationalism is a dangerous ideology. It takes patriotism to an authoritarian direction. That's the way I interpret nationalism. So, but my advice to her is to be an independent. If the Democrats are horrible, be an independent. Now, she talks about woke Democrats. Now, Democrats who basically are on a crusade to protect people from harm, hurt feelings, but don't do anything when it comes to economics, as far as income inequality. Yeah, I get it. In that regard. However, don't act like the Republicans aren't woke. The Republicans make it very clear. A lot of people like Margaret Taylor Greene talks about being a Christian nationalist party. I mean, excuse me, her describing herself as a Christian nationalist. And Republicans are getting very comfortable with those words, Christian nationalism. And you go and look up your history of what Christian nationalism is in the context of American politics, going back to the 1930s, 40s, and the 1950s. Would they think twice? I would hope they would think twice about using that phrase. Christian nationalism today is just a polite way for them to say, to them, it's a polite way of saying Christian identity. But they kind of know what Christian identity is, and they try to cover it up with the phrase Christian nationalism. But Christian nationalism is just as bad of a term as Christian identity. It means pretty much the same thing. And for those who don't know what Christian identity is a white supremacist Christian ideology that, not to say that Christianity is white supremacist per se, but it is a distinct form of Christianity that is white supremacists or white nationalists in practice, that believe that black and brown people are lesser human beings descending from the mud and will not be saved and will not go to heaven, and that Jews are the children of Satan. That's what they believe. And so anybody who calls themselves a Christian nationalist and they don't feel that way, they better think about that term. So there's that. And so Tulsi Gabbard, she needs to be careful about going into the Republican Party where people are calling themselves Christian and nationalists, her being a practicing Hindu herself, because, they, I mean, they're going around and they're pretty much saying, if you're not Christian, you're not welcome. You should have lesser rights than everybody else. And honestly, and there are even Christians out there that are conservative, that are non-traditional, that they should be careful about being too allied with the Republican Party, especially the people who are calling themselves Christian nationalists, like Mormons. Mormons better be careful, because there's a lot of prejudice against Mormons by a lot of these people. So I'm giving it as an example right there. So as an example. So I'm just giving you my take. So there's a lot of wokeness in the Republican Party. They're hostily anti-LGBTQ. They're very, very overtly anti-trans, but they're also signaling out gays and lesbians too. Look at what Governor DeSantis is doing down in Florida with the "Don't Say Gay" bill. He's not even going out his way saying, "Well, we don't want." We're not signaling out the LGBTQ community. He's not even doing that. He's doing it specifically to vilify everybody in the LGBTQ community, as if everybody in the LGBTQ community are after children, which is not true at all. No more true than heterosexual people would be. And either way, whether they're LGBTQ or whether they're heterosexual, anybody going after kids is bad, regardless of orientation. But that's a separate issue aside. The fact that Governor DeSantis is targeting the LGBTQ community is problematic. Targeting, I hate corporations, but targeting Disney, because Disney said that "Don't Say Gay" bill sucks, and he goes and strip them of their municipality status. Now, it's okay to strip them of their municipality status, but not for that reason. Not for that reason. It's revenge politics. Having anti-riot laws, supposedly anti-riot laws, protest laws that actually gives the right for right-wingers to actually run over left-wing protesters. That is what Governor DeSantis is all about. The Augusto Pinochet of Florida, a man who wants to have an ideology curriculum preaching on the evils of communism. So he obviously thinks that communism is a bigger problem than fascism. We know where his heart is. So this is the kind of Republican Party I hope she's not thinking about joining. And as far as the anti-war stuff is concerned, let me just say this. Don't be fooled. Now, do I think that Donald Trump is anti-war? It's not that I think he's anti-war, but Donald Trump does sort of echo maybe some aspects of paleoconservatism and maybe some aspect of libertarianism, in the sense that they have a generally anti-interventionist sentiment, and he knows that, so he taps into that, because there are a faction within MAGA who are anti-war, legitimately anti-war, sincerely so. So he wants to preach to that crowd, but he also knows there's a part of MAGA that are still fixated and still pro-Bush-Cheney foreign policy doctrine, pro-neoconservative. And they're really, honestly, to God, that Bush-Cheney faction is the biggest faction of MAGA. They were just supporters of Ted Cruz. They were supporters of some of the other Republican candidates in the 2016 primaries before some of them reluctantly came behind Trump. And now they're big Trump supporters, because the Trump of 2016 they were reluctant about, but the Trump of 2020, they love him now. They love him now because he turned out to do the things that they want him to do. Now, some of them may not like his style. Like Ben Shapiro doesn't like his style and all of that. But the Republican Party, when the Democrats are gone and there's a Republican president, you better believe they'll be neoconservative again, especially when the orange man cult of personality status is gone. Because let me tell you, the Republican leadership, they want him out of the way. They want him out of the way as quickly as possible. Even if they think they'll lose the next election, they think that Donald Trump is toxic. And they'd be right in a sense. But so they want Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis gives them everything that is shitty from my perspective, everything that's shitty about George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, plus all what is real and imagined about Donald Trump into one candidate as a normie, Mitt Romney demeanor style Republican, but a shittier Mitt Romney, which Mitt Romney's shitty enough as it is. So Tulsi Gabbard, if she leaves the Democratic Party and becomes strictly independent, I can respect that. But if Tulsi Gabbard leaves the Democratic Party and tries to, and she ends up joining the Republican Party and ends up, eventually them grooming her into becoming basically a female Dan Crenshaw, that's a Tulsi Gabbard I want nothing to do with. That is the Tulsi Gabbard that is so alien to what I respected about her. It is a Tulsi Gabbard that, in my opinion, can really, at that point, fuck off. If you're going to be Dan Crenshaw without the mustache, excuse me, without the eye patch, without the beard, and with basically a female Dan Crenshaw, that's a Tulsi Gabbard I want nothing to do with, because Dan Crenshaw is what the Republican Party is really, in essence, with the Mitch McConnells, the Liz Cheneys, the Mitt Romneys, the George W. Bushes, the Dick Cheneys, all these folks. And yeah, you toss in the Pat Robertsons and toss in the John Hagees in there. You can toss them all in there, the Ben Shapiros and all of that. That is a Republican Party I want nothing to do with. Yeah, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, they're horrible human beings. I despise them, but I despise the Republican Party I just described too. Now, if that's what she wants to go into, then I can't even vaguely call her an ally, because I have a feeling that some of her good points that she still makes about the intervention of U.S. and NATO within Ukraine, Russia, where she's still correct, she may start talking less about it. I noticed that she's not talking about Julian Assange that much anymore. When was the last time we heard her talking about Julian Assange? It's been a while. So, and it's really weird, because I went from basically wanting her to be Bernie Sanders' running mate in 2019, 2020 to now ready to write her off completely. So if she's smart and wants to go into a route that she's going into, and she wants to keep her left-wing base and still accommodate a new group of people, she better not go within the Republican Party and totally and 100% embracing them. But if she ends up embracing them and becomes Dave Rubin, then honestly, there's no reason to even vaguely call her an ally. Because with Dave Rubin, when's the last time you heard David Rubin say anything particularly progressive leaning? Honestly, when was the last time you heard him talk about, legalizing weed? Or when was the last time you heard him talking about, when he said he used to be against the death penalty? When was the last time you heard him say something about anti-capital punishment settlement? When was the last time? He claims to be for free speech, but where is the free speech when leftists are being silenced? He's nowhere to be seen these days. Where is he on BDS? With the criminalization of BDS in some states, I don't hear Dave Rubin around. So on the foreign policy question, you better believe it, that the Republican Party still is the Republican Party of John Bolton more than it is the Republican Party of Ron or Rand Paul. You better believe it. And one other thing about her, as she was exiting out of Congress in 2020, she basically, instead of exiting out of Congress, maybe trying to work with the squad to do what was right, which was to go and borrow a Jimmy Dore idea, which was a DSA idea, which was to go and work on forced to vote on Medicare for all to hold Nancy Pelosi's fucking seat hostage. And I think that if she would have done that, I think she's smart enough that she could have convinced the squad to do this. Nope. He worked on an anti-trans bill with some Republican congressman. What the fuck is that about? You know, if I'm going to be charitable and say she's still some kind of a liberal, she must be a turf. But if she's doing this to grift toward the right, I mean, what the fuck? I mean, you know, what the fuck? That's wrong, you know, and you know, that's playing into the culture war bullshit, and things like that would make me sorry that I've ever defended her. So, you know, Tulsi Gabbard's got a choice to make, you know, whether, you know, I mean, I'm just an obscure YouTube commentator, but she's got a choice to make, and that choice is that she's going to either have to be on the side of good, and I'm not being politically correct, but she's going to have to decide whether she wants to be on the side of good and to go and fight for economic justice and fight for peace and fight for equality, or she wants to go with the crowd and be, you know, pretend to be a populist with Trump, but end up supporting Mitch McConnell like agenda, which basically perpetuate the kind of status quo that she claims to be against. Now I get it. I do get it. She was while people were being mean to her on the progressive side of the equation, being a veteran, she has some respect from some conservatives because she's a veteran. And some libertarians liked her, and some conservatives liked her because she was a veteran. I get it. And so she felt the love and everything. But, you know, is she going to go and be, you know, is she going to go and be a guest on Jimmy Dore, or she made it on the Young Turks too, with Shank. She's going to be a guest on the Young Turks in 1 year, but then you're going to go on PragerU. If that day comes, we know we lost her. So let's see what happens. And yeah, I know she goes on Tucker. I don't give a fuck if she goes on Tucker. But when she goes on Tucker and she sounds like Dan Crenshaw, that's a problem. She goes on Tucker, she sounds like Tulsi Gabbard, the way I like Tulsi Gabbard to talk. If she sounds like Abby Martin instead, I'm cool. Or she sounds like Abby Martin light, because sometimes she kind of reminds, when she was more lefty, she kind of reminded me of Abby Martin. I'm kind of weird that way. That's something I've noticed. But anyhow, that's what I got to say about Tulsi right now. So I hope that there will be a left turn for Tulsi. But if there's not a left turn, I certainly hope it won't be a right turn. Because if there's a right turn that she's making, she's not going to be pro worker, and she's not going to be pro worker. She's not going to be pro civil liberties at that point, and she's not going to be pro Medicare for all. And watch it with a changing of the guard within the Republican Party. Watch it, she doesn't start sounding like Mark Levin on foreign policy, because a grift is a grift, and nothing's uglier than a grift. And I know people that became conservative over the years on a personal level. Some people I like, but some people I don't like. You know, one particular person who became kind of well known in political discourse in America that I used to know and used to be a close friend of mine. He turned right wing in the ugliest sense of the term, working on anti-immigration issues in the most toxic sort of way. And it's sad to see people turn from progressive to turn into the alt-right, and I've seen that happen. And another friend of mine saw a friend at his university went from being a progressive to being a corporate Democrat. So a well-known corporate Democrat. And my former friend became a well-known nasty right-winger, and his friend became a well-known corporate Democrat. So it's just kind of weird how, you know, people who knows each other knows people who became famous and went in a certain political direction. I digress. We have here on the chat line, Extra Bulla. How are you doing today? How are you doing today? Have a great show, boss. Listening to you in the background. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Much obliged. Let's see. I left the Democratic Party on the issue of nuclear war. I cannot slam for Tulsi doing the same. Well, I can understand that in that regard. She's a turf, says Catherine Ann McCloskey Ross, and that's what it looks like, unfortunately, for Tulsi. And it's totally sad. So, anyway, if y'all like what you heard, please press like and comment. And if you disagree with what I have to say, comment anyway. We will have a conversation. Share what I have, of course. And as a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. In addition, please follow me and subscribe to my channel on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter pretty much all the time, all kinds of hours. You can almost find me all the time on Twitter, even when I'm asleep in the daytime, because I work at night. When I get up to take a pee break or whatever, and then wash my hands before I go back to bed, I'll go and say, let's see what's going on Twitter. That's kind of how I am. Weird. But anyway, so just, you can follow me on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and all of that. And remember to always reject corporate media, because they have nothing to offer us, not a damn thing to offer us. And I'll conclude by telling you to have a great day, and also conclude by saying to you all, music.